Hello, friends. I am Calvin Harris, CPA, Chief Executive Officer of the New York State Society of Certified Public Accountants, and you are listening to the Trusted Professional Podcast. This is a new podcast where I will be interviewing leaders in the accounting profession in New York and beyond, as well as those who influence this space. CPAs are navigating their jobs in a rapidly changing environment through evolving technology, staffing changes, and legislative and regulatory landscape that often has a major impact on the work that we do. Organizations like NYSSCPA strive to support its members and the profession as a whole. This podcast is just one part of that focus. This podcast will come out every other week and will feature regular reports on news affecting accountants and periodic updates from the society itself. Expect updates on important topics such as taxation, technology, legislation, auditing, regulation, and of course, the pipeline. We will go beyond the typical headlines, though, to make sure that you are well informed. Following news and updates, I will then have in-depth conversations with subject matter experts and other individuals who are doing important and innovative work. And they also just have great stories to tell. Now, this podcast is called The Trusted Professional because that's what CPAs are. We're accredited and ethical professionals who train to protect and promote the public interest here in New York and well beyond. You can especially look to NYSSCPA as your trusted source for news on the state of the profession, along with interviews from interesting people who will help move the profession forward. Now, with that background information aside, I hope you enjoy our conversation today. Our first guest on the Trusted Professional Podcast is Rumbi Petrillo, former board president of the Society and head of strategy consulting at Ceramount. Now let's dive in. Rumbi Petrillo, CPA, CFF, NACB, DC, and CFE, is head of strategy consulting at Ceramount, a strategic professional services and research firm dedicated to supporting high-performing, inclusive workplaces. Rumbi is also a past president of the State Society and the first woman of color elected to serve in that role in our over 125-year history. She's a member of the board of the AICPA, an Association of International Certified Public Accountants, as well as the president of the Society's Moynihan Scholarship Fund. Rumbi serves as a trustee of the Accountants Club of America, as well as a member of the AICPA Council, AICPA National Accreditation Commission, and the AICPA Fraud Task Force. She's also a past member of the AICPA's Forensic and Litigation Services Committee. So welcome, Rumbi. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hey, Calvin. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Welcome again to the Trusted Professional Podcast. As you and I know both all too well, this idea of a podcast for New York State is something that we had been talking about for a while. I've been in the role as of the taping a little over 2 years, but I know it's been an idea for the Society for quite a bit longer than that. So I'm really excited to have you join us in our first episodes to bring this fun into fruition. So thank you for joining.
No, thank you. We've talked about it a lot, but very excited that to your point, it has come to fruition. It's great for us to be able to have these discussions and tell stories and have fun.
Absolutely. And speaking of having fun, I know we're calling this a podcast interview, but the intention is really to be a conversation. Not necessarily dissimilar to the conversations that you and I have offline, but probably a little shorter.
Shorter. Hopefully we won't get off topic too often. We'll try. I know. Well, good luck to us.
Yeah, as you well know, I if anyone's going to take us off topic, it'll be me. So I'm actually going to try to live up to what my goal is and get us started. I went through your amazing bio and the fantastic things you've done and continue to do in the accounting profession and beyond. But what we didn't really get in your bio is how you got here. So I'd love for you to talk about your journey to the field of accounting. So how did you get from there to here?
I will try to make it as short as possible because it has been a journey. When I first went to college, my first degree from Mount Holyoke College was in economics and mathematics. I graduated from Mount Holyoke and I went to work at a bank. I was working at the bank and I'd done my internship at this bank while I was still in college. The CEO called me into his office and gave me a lecture on how he wished he'd always studied accounting in his life, but instead he was an economist and he felt that accounting was more practical and less theoretical and more hands-on. In the moment, I disagreed because I had on purpose not taken any accounting classes during my time at Mount Holyoke.
On purpose, okay.
On purpose, I was a math person, and apparently when people meet math people, they tell them that, oh, you should be an actuary or an accountant, and the PR for either one of those professions has never been great. I just wondered what they thought of me, that they thought that should be my path in life. But he convinced me to meet with a friend of his who was a partner at Deloitte. And I met with the partner. We had a conversation, and he convinced me to give the accounting thing a try. So I said, okay, and started working at Deloitte. While I was working at Deloitte, I then got my degree in accounting, got the experience, the work experience thing also done that is required to become a CPA. And my path in the world of accounting started in audit, which I think is great because I think this is how I remained in accounting, because there are certain parts of audit that I found to be very interesting and very rewarding. And when you are in that space, you also have the opportunity to still work with people and to provide service and to have conversations and to get information, to perhaps solve mysteries hopefully with good endings. And I found this to be more than I imagined what accounting was, especially when I was resisting it actively while in college. One of the things that then happened was I wasn't sure I wanted to go all the way and become a CPA, to take the exams. I've been in college for way longer than I'd imagined, and working, having a job, and going to college at the same time. Whatever it is that you're studying it's a lot. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of commitment to the cause. But what I did find was when I went out into the work world and you're interviewing for jobs and you're having conversations with people, and they'd say, oh, I see you studied accounting. I see you work at Deloitte. But there'd always be the but. How good are you really at what you do? And so that was when I decided to take the exams and become a CPA, because it becomes exhausting to try to have those conversations, tell people, yes, I am really good at what I do. And just when you're a CPA, nobody asks that question.
Yeah, no, that's true. It is. We may be biased, but it doesn't mean we're wrong that CPA is the credential. Side note, talking about Deloitte, as you well know, our first board president was Haskins, one of the first CPAs in the state of New York, which made him one of the first CPAs ever. But so there's a bit of a full circle moment there, I think.
Yeah. And Haskins is one of, because it's no longer in the name, but one of the founding partners of Deloitte. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, it sounds like you became a CPA to tell someone I told you, and you've more than done that.
Yeah, I'm sure if you spoke to my parents, they'll tell you that I have a history of doing things to be able to say that. That might be their bias.
And there you go. Well, I think you're going to love this next question I have for you then. Let's talk about a little bit about challenges, not necessarily your own, but even just more broadly. What do you see as the biggest challenge we're dealing with as a profession? You can think broader than that you want. We're talking accounting profession. What do you think the biggest challenge is?
One of the first things is what I talked about. What kept me out of the profession, at least initially, is the sort of the negative stereotypes. And I say negative, we're never seen as great people on TV shows, in movies. And so...
Yeah, we have The Accountant, a movie with Ben Affleck. No shade to Ben Affleck, but he was a contract killer, I believe. And they called that movie The Accountant. Did he do any real accounting in the movie? Is what I want to know.
I think he had a whiteboard that had some numbers on it at a certain point somewhere. However, I did watch The Untouchables recently, which I know is so very late to the game. Wait,
you just watched The Untouchables?
Yes, Calvin. I just recently watched The Untouchables, and it's doubly worse because anyone who knows me knows that I am obsessed with all things Al Capone, in part because it was his taxes that put him in prison.
Sean Connery won an Academy Award, but let's not talk about what happened to the accountant in the elevator. It didn't necessarily end that well. He was great at his job, though.
Right, there you go. But so when you watch The Untouchables, what in The Untouchables is that, and this is what I was saying to my husband, who's probably watched it several times, but this was now through a new lens. I said to him, the true heroes in this movie are the accountants. And so at a certain point, so anyone who goes back to watch it, spoiler alert, if you can fast forward however long in order, if you haven't seen it yet, but when you watch it, you'll find that even at the beginning, there's a special force of men with guns who are going out to catch Al Capone. And then there is an accountant with very thick glasses living the stereotype. But he keeps coming in and saying, these books, there's something wrong with these numbers. And he keeps insisting on it. And he's sideswiped by a gun, like, move aside, let us do our job. And he's right. And then second of all, there is actually a gunfight where he saves the life of
that's true. I forgot.
The hero.
At the Canadian border. If you haven't seen the movie, we're really tearing it up right now. But
yeah, ruining it for you. We're ruining it for you. But if you have, you should go back and watch it through this new lens. And then there's that epic scene in the train station, and the person they're trying to protect is Al Capone's bookkeeper, because he's the person who will destroy Al Capone.
You're right. I forgot. I was thinking about the other bookkeeper. That one actually turned out, we don't know what happened to him, but we're going to think the thoughts for him.
But, and I think if I were to make the movie again, I would reframe it so that people were absolutely clear and came back 20 years, 30 years from now to say, you know who the heroes in this story are? They are the accountants.
Fair point. I'm embarrassed to say, as a fellow CPA, it hadn't really dawned on me that clearly. As many times as I actually have seen the movie, because I was always a big Sean Connery fan. But it didn't really hit me that it wasn't just one, but two accountants that played huge parts in the movie. So,
absolutely. It wouldn't exist without them.
So wait a minute. How does this come back to our biggest challenge within the profession? We had a great review of The Untouchables.
I think what it is, is that people don't understand what we do. Not even a lot of our nearest and dearest fully understand what we do. And because they don't have that full understanding, they also don't understand, one, the value that we bring, not just to the world of finance, it's like to the world period, because we do live in a society that is, the United States is a capitalist country. We run on capitalism. And if you're not understanding how money works, not just how the numbers work, but how the numbers work with the business or anything else that you're doing, you're not going to thrive for long. So I think that part is important. I think also people miss the fact that our work is so much broader than bookkeeping is what makes a lot of our work so interesting. You and I have both worked in forensic accounting, so we can speak to a lot of the human element in addition to the business element that comes into play in the work that we do. I've worked in industry, and now I actually work as a consultant. And what I now do is work with companies to build strategies to ensure that the culture in their organization is healthier, because there is that saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so if your culture isn't right, then your numbers are never going to be right. And a lot of people say, oh, so you stopped accounting. And I say, everything I do every day utilizes the skills that I gained through my work, be it a sort of skepticism, be it solutioning, be it strategy, all of it comes into play. And also just the impact on the business, right? So all of that comes into play when I do my work. The biggest challenge comes back to they don't know what we do. It would be so fantastic if, one, we were better portrayed just out in the grander world, and two, just like everyone had a better understanding all the way up from grade school of what we do. We talk about pipeline challenges. I'm sure that would address a lot of our pipeline challenges. And now I said I was not going to follow your rules. I'm going to give you a second massive challenge.
All right. I'm going to say the first one is essentially relevancy or good storytelling. Would that be a fair way of saying it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Or better storytelling.
I know we're long-winded, but we get to the point, hopefully, most of the time. But so the second part of this is part of our journey to, again, building better pipeline, a stronger pipeline, but also building a strong profession where we truly have great talent working in this, is being truly honest about some of the ways in which we're not being, let's use, truly inclusive in our profession. And we know that part of the journey to becoming a CPA is work experience, and you have to work under the supervision of a CPA for a certain amount of time. And that means somebody needs to bring you into the fold and hire you. So you could have, and it happens, there are people who graduate top of their class, they've passed all 4 parts of the CPA exam, and then they struggle to find the work that will give them that experience. And I've talked to people in the HR space, and a lot of them will tell you that even at the beginning of the funnel, representation across the board is sort of almost mirrors the society that we live in, right? But then at some point, as people are filtering through to who we're actually going to bring into this space, and this is an entry-level position, right? Because this is you coming into the workplace for the first time. Somehow, a lot of our students at this point, students of color, people of color, sometimes women, maybe some of our neurodiverse colleagues, a lot of them are excluded through this funnel. And then you get to a point where we're not representative. In addition to that, people will come into firms and we make things unnecessarily difficult in terms of we come back to this culture. And if we think about the work that we do in and of itself, serving clients, problem solving, looking at documents, maintaining these sort of great ethical standards. And when we are doing that and then we have toxic workplaces, we're not looking out for the health of our employees, people that are cliques within the workplace, that have people drop out, not because they can't do it, but because they don't feel welcome and included in that workplace. Again, we're losing talent. We also get to the point where when we're looking at how people are advancing within the workplace, are we being fair and equitable about how we're looking at our talent and how we're deciding who's going to advance and how we are evaluating our employees. And so these are all questions that we need to be as like the way we are objective in the way we're expected to do our work, we should be that objective in the way we are looking at our talent, because our profession can only be great if we treat our talent well. I think there's the founder of Virgin, Branson.
Yep, Richard Branson. Yep.
Richard Branson. So he said, my goal in my workplace is to develop my employees so that they are so good that everyone wants them, that they could leave, but treat them so well that they don't want to leave. Treat them well enough so that they stay. Yeah. And that's what we should be looking to do. 2 challenges.
All right, but that second one's a meaty one, and I completely agree. It's something that affects everything we do. Certainly affects our pipeline and our ability to move forward and to retain talent, not just at the beginning of that so-called pipeline funnel, but in the middle and the end. So, yeah, well said. And something that I know a lot of folks, yourself included, are striving to make the profession as equitable as possible. And in some cases, there are fair arguments to be had and discussions to have amongst each other. But I think it's critical for the long-term profession to really live up to the words that we say. I think is critical.
No, I agree. And I think people throw things out. And I know in theory, you're like, oh, blind spots or all of these things that happen. But there are things that, because of our different lived experiences, if, for instance, you only hire tall people in an organization, let me go with that because you're a tall guy, you might never have a step stool like in your kitchen. And then when somebody comes in, they might struggle to reach things because nobody thought about having that in your space because you've never needed it. And so when we think about why we need to have different forms of representation, different lived experiences, different, like in all the ways that these come into play, whether it means I played on a basketball team or I was a runner and I ran by myself, like all of these things come together because then we see different things when we're in these things. And so we don't have the groupthink or like the unified thinking. And I always think we're in a great place when somebody brings something up and somebody says, oh my goodness, I never thought of that. Because you're bringing a new voice into this conversation. And this is how, especially in this time of like change and competition and all of those great things, this is how we get better at what we do.
No, I think that's very well said. I will admit that I like you began in the audit side, and I really value the way my career began, even though I knew that auditing long term wasn't the best fit for me. I still learned a lot, and I was in an obviously inclusive environment in every way that can mean, and just made a difference. And I'm sure part of the reason I'm so passionate about getting people in accounting, much like you, and wanting more people to be in accounting, is that I just know how great the profession already is, and how great it can even be. Let me ask one question. You've touched on this a little bit, but I'll ask it anyway. What's one idea, concept, or even an opinion about the profession, or even otherwise, do you think the majority of people get wrong? and I know you might break the rules, so I'll still say one thing. The one idea or concept that you think people consistently get wrong about us. And I'm going to take away the easiest one because it's the one I know you get much as I do. That all CPAs do taxes. So we're going to take that one off the table.
We're taking the taxes. We're taking the taxes off the table.
Don't even say that we're all good at math. We're going to take that off too because I've had to tell some students stuff.
Because that was my revelation. My first day at Deloitte, I was in like this team building exercise, and I had actually just studied math. And I was in this team building exercise, and I had this moment where I was just like, I'm surrounded by people who aren't really good at math. But at the same time, because they were way better at accounting. A lot of them, they had degrees in accounting, and accounting had conquered me. I couldn't understand it because I'd come from an economics viewpoint. I think one of the big things once you get past the math and the taxes is, I think often people boil us down to bookkeepers. And before I came into this, I was guilty of the same. I know even when I dragged kicking and screaming, kind of, I was like, I will try this out, but I'm willing to drop out as soon as possible. And I tried several times, but I held stereotypes about accountants. I thought that I was just like, oh my gosh, they have to be the most boring people in the world. They just have a certain personality. And I was like, I am not that personality. So there is no way that this could be my job. I don't have to tell you, I'm not. I think very few people consider me to be an introvert, for instance. But I have found that within our profession, there's some really interesting and exciting people. I think there are a lot of famous people out there that have an accounting background, and they're acting and they're doing whatever. They're musicians. I actually just sort of joined the AICPA board. I know one of my fellow board class members studied music in college. And I feel that the skills, we don't see this, right? These skills, that music theory, or the fact that there's a process that you should be following, and also thinking critically about various things and solving problems. It's the combination of the two things, which I think a lot of people see easily in music, but don't necessarily see so easily in the work that we do. And I think part of it is sometimes we don't do ourselves great favors. A couple of weeks ago, we were at AICPA Council, and I went to dinner with a fellow CPA who is proudly wearing her coolest profession around pin.
I think I know who that is. Sure.
Yeah. And our server was like, oh, are you a CPA? And we're like, yes, we are. Like, this is what we do. And then she shared that she started out as an accounting major.
Oh, the story never ends when it begins with, I started out as an accounting major.
I know.
I've yet to hear a good end. Let's see if you break up.
But this is, hopefully the ending will be a better ending. But then she says her experience in the class was, the professor was not as welcoming, as inclusive as one would want. And I don't know, I hear people, thankfully it didn't happen to me, but people say you get into a class and somebody's look to your left and look to your right, and only one of you will make it through, whatever it is that they claim people say. And so she then switched to hospitality. And I said, do you like it? Because I could take the story in many ways to be sort of tell her that she should still study accounting. And she says, no, I don't like it. And that's exactly, and I said, come back, give it another try, because like she said, she enjoyed the core concepts. It was the experience that turned her off and made her switch her path. And I think we need to do better. That is our responsibility, because we need to show how much better what we do is. And they say death and taxes, those are the absolutes. But I would say accounting. Like when you look, people say the oldest written document was an accounting of something. And so I think it's important for everyone to understand, not just like that we are essential, but that we are just really great to have, that what we are doing is protecting the public, which is why we are CPAs, public accountants. We're serving the public interest. We are trusted advisors, business partners, strategic advisors, but we're working with organizations to understand and make the world run.
It seems like when it comes down to it, no, it's so well said. And I think if I'm hearing you correctly, when we're talking about the thing that people get wrong, it still comes back to controlling our own narrative, telling our own stories, telling good stories. In many cases, putting good storytellers out there so that people can see them, because otherwise you end with Ben Affleck. Man, I'm gonna need to find a new movie. It's just Ben Affleck's famous, and
that's the movie that people think, oh, The Accountant. I know there's a movie, and I can't remember what it's called, because these are the things. They're like on a plane, something comes up with The Rock and...
The Rock's done a lot of movies at this point.
Yeah, and it's... who's
You know what? You talking about Kevin Hart?
Kevin Hart.
I'm
Yes.
sorry. I don't know why involuntarily. I don't think we're going to have this on video, but I unintentionally put my hand at a very low level. I'm not sure why I did that. I don't know if Kevin Hart's interested in accounting, but if he is, I'm sorry.
In the movie, one of them is a forensic accountant, and this is how
Kevin Hart was the accountant.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah. And The Rock, I think, was like not the cool guy, but then got like, I don't even know. There was like a whole thing. But the core to the story was, it's sometimes they sneak us into the story, but not great.
Yeah, for Kevin Hart was obviously the comic relief. I actually enjoyed that movie, though. I will admit, but he wasn't accountant. You know, I may have to start thinking through what movie accountants or TV show accountants do we really want to lead in on. I was always partial to the workers at The Office, but they weren't necessarily the Office, the U.S. TV show. I'm not sure anybody would really want those to be your accountants either. We have to think more on that.
We do. I watch these shows, and now I'm probably going to make a bunch of lawyers like angry with me.
Oh, let's hear it. Definitely. Now you have to say it.
But you watch TV shows, and everyone wants to be a lawyer because their lives always look so interesting. You never see them sitting around and like reading through mountains of briefs. They're just like out there solving crimes in great looking suits, and they apparently have enough time they're always like fit and just suits and whatever it is, right?
Clearly don't worry about billable hours on television.
No, absolutely not. And I don't know. I wonder if one could have a podcast and say, did you become disillusioned when you actually went into the work?
Podcast.
That's
it might be coming. Who knows?
But I think, yes, it's TV, so you glam things up, but we're never glammed up. Not on Law and Order. The forensic accountant is the most annoying person of the hour in that show. And even when cases are solved, you never hear about the role of the forensic accountant or the CPA or anyone in the financial role as bringing that about. But like a lot of crime is related to money, for instance. And I keep coming here because they are my background in forensic accountant, but a lot of things, they come back to the money. And when people are trying to, let's say, follow the money, whatever it is, like there are people who do that well. And if you aren't able to do that, then you might not be able to find somebody responsible for their actions. And this brings us back to Al Capone because, we know that he was out there apparently like done this at Valentine's Day massacre, but he didn't go to prison for that.
I'm sure when people were looking for or are listening to the Trust Professional podcast, they would be very surprised to realize there have been 3 separate Al Capone references in the show, but all were appropriate to accounting, as it turns out.
There you go.
I'm going to say I'm going to have to figure out who that I'm sure there's one. There's got to be some TV or movie accountant who is the hero in the story. Untouchables is the hero in the story. They just ended up dead. But
did we know he was the hero in the moment? Nobody talks about him, Calvin. Nobody talks.
But at the very end, they had
the guy on the stand because he survived to testify. But nobody's, do you remember that the accountant?
Yeah,
that's
true.
No, they don't.
True. That's true. Even Kevin Costner, he avenged Sean Connery, but the accountant, tough luck, buddy.
No, it's a whole thing. We're just like...
We'll fix that.
We will.
As we tell better stories.
This is our mission. This is our journey. Yes.
As we have better stories. Now, here we go, though. So now this feeds right into it. Let's just pretend for a moment that you had unlimited resources and no constraint, just a wild thought experiment. So what innovative project or initiative would you undertake to transform the accounting profession? Remember, I said unlimited, so it's who knows where this could go.
We keep talking about our image, right? I would definitely look towards revamping and rehabbing our image, getting people to understand that the work that we do, it can be exciting, it can be fun, it can be challenging. You get to think about things, you get to strategize, look into the future. You also get to be a leader. Okay, you're a CEO. I know this is another thing. People are like, they tend to limit how far a CPA can go because it builds leadership skills. A lot of the work that we do, that we have to do, right, means that we have to be leaders within our societies, within our communities. We are, as you say, the trusted professionals. That's what we are because of the ethics that we are, or at least supposed to abide by, that again, bring us back to this audit that you and I both started out in. And this is maybe one of the misconceptions about what it is. There's only one thing within the world of finance that no one else can do, that we do.
That's the audit.
That's the audit, right? And it's powerful because it means we are trusted. Our opinion is trusted beyond anyone else's opinion. If somebody's like, can I trust you with my money? And somebody says, let me give you these auditors signed financials. That's weight, and that's responsibility, and that's leadership. And we always hope and wish that all of our CPAs would abide by that because, again, that doesn't help. Because nobody talks about the boring financials that are fantastic that you could trust, right? They think about the ones that went awry. But it's an important thing because there is literally no other profession that is trusted with people's money in the way that we are. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, and we have an ethical public obligation to be mindful and be appropriate with it. So it sounds like I can control everything, I can do anything. You would have, I think a communication plan is not the right word, but you would do things to enhance our standing and our communication. Did I get it right?
I'd say across the board, right? Not even, obviously there's the movies and the PR and how we're seen, but even with kids. Right. And getting people to understand the cool things that we do, just serving the public, volunteering. But I would really be looking to have us out there getting people to understand that we are the best of the things that are guaranteed in life, right? Death, taxes, nobody thinks those are fun. But accounting, that's the fun part of the things that are guaranteed in life.
That's very well said. And as there are definitely organizations that are separately working on these kind of things, just amazing packages, but we don't necessarily have any consistent messages yet. I'm hopeful that we'll get there. And I think a lot of us are talking to get us there, but that's a great one because I think that one thing you suggested, that's why we wanted a big idea, that would help us all along the lines on getting kids interested in accounting, having the general public better understand what we do, and also help our own messaging to make sure that we're not losing people along the way. So I've really enjoyed this conversation, Rumbi, but I did want to ask you one last thing, and this is your chance right here. What's the one question that I didn't ask you that I probably should have?
I think you didn't ask me what has me excited about the future. Maybe I didn't look excited about the future, but I am. So,
you touched on in a few places, but let's hear that one. What has you excited about the future?
I think the future of our profession is bright. I'll tell you why, Calvin. One of the reasons is we're living in a time that is in part truly focused on the entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that for a long time, people talk about that in many ways about being a part of the American story. But when we talk about these things, and I'm probably going to say many wrong things because I'm not in those spaces, but it's like you have these influencers and TikTok stars, and even in some spaces, I know people talk about women are the fastest growing sort of group of entrepreneurs. So you have people who are like, I am going into business, I am starting my own thing. And I think for us, it's hopefully sooner rather than later, all of these entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their lives in this way are going to see the absolute value of CPAs in their success journey. Over and over again, even when you read about football stars in the news, they've lost all their money after they've been paid a whole bunch of money. And part of it is because they haven't given their money to a CPA. But as we tell a better story, right, as we remove the mystery and the math from all the work that we're doing and infuse the essential nature of the work that we do to business, we will find more people, one, not only working with us, but two, also understanding that they want to know this and maybe they want to be able to apply these skills to their business, or they are like, this is truly exciting. I want to be able to serve and have an impact because I think this is also one of the things that drives me is feeling that everything I do has meaning, right? Has impact, right? It matters. Otherwise, when I might as well just be, I don't know, sitting on the beach and reading a book, which I don't know, maybe that has impact. But when I'm going to work, I'm spending my day, I'm investing this time, right? I seek impact. And I think my parents, probably from their parents, underscored the importance of service And this is a great way to serve because often we are protecting the future of the people we're working with, and we're protecting the future of the generations that'll come after that. And for me, in whatever way, whether you're seeing it directly in the moment or you see it like further down the line, I think that's what makes our work. And we live in a world where we also hear that people want to serve more, where people want to give back more. And again, this is a way to incorporate it not just into your free time, but also into your work time.
Well said. I couldn't say it any better. I completely agree that accounting can certainly be a place to serve. I really appreciate the time. Thank you. This was Rumbi Petrillo of Saramount, past president of the New York State Society of CPAs and board member of the AICPA, joining us on the Trusted Professional podcast. Thank you so much for your time, Rumbi. I really appreciate you joining us here today.
Thanks so much, Calvin. I always love chatting with you, so thank you for having me on.
All right, thanks. Thank you for listening to our great interview with Rumbi. As you could tell, she's had an exciting career to date and is passionate about the profession and its inclusiveness and equity. And we also had a great conversation on some of our favorite fictional accounts. I suspect that's going to be a topic of conversation in future episodes. Now, if you liked what you heard, please subscribe now to get this podcast delivered to you when it is released. Also, please feel free to leave a review. In addition, if you aren't a member of the New York Society of CPAs, I urge you to learn more about our and work at NYSSCPA.org or follow us on social media. Last, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, including a potential interview, please email at podcast@nysscpa.org. See you soon.